Because my parents are going to live in this house, you should just go to a facility. Stunned by these words from my eldest son's wife, I found myself gaping in shock. Seeing my surprised reaction, my eldest son, who should have stopped his wife's outburst, looked at me and smirked, saying,
"Don't take it the wrong way."
Indeed, it wouldn't be difficult to hand over this house to my eldest son and his wife if they wished to live here. I was also considering moving into a facility soon, but there is one problem. Can these kids afford a rent of $2,000? However, before I could voice my doubts, they said to me,
"First of all, it's inappropriate for a stingy person like you, Mom, to be surrounded by such luxurious appliances. That's why we as a couple are thinking of living together with our in-laws. Our in-laws run a company."
Exactly. It's a waste for you to live in this house, mother-in-law. People like us should be living in this house. Noblesse oblige, right? I think they're completely missing the point. Faced with their words, I found it foolish to even mention the rent or my income. Understood. I'll have the things I bought picked up by a contractor tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be hectic, so if you're moving in, please do so the day after tomorrow. As I said this, the couple, thinking everything was going their way, looked at each other and beamed with joy.
"All right, let's go talk to my father-in-law and mother-in-law right away."
They'll surely be delighted. With those words, they left the house, and I watched them go as I called the contractor. My name is Emily. I lost my husband 3 years ago and now live alone. My close friend Emma once suggested, "Emily, now that you're alone, why don't you join me in the facility? It's like a luxury apartment with a concierge and everything." However, I declined her invitation, wanting to spend some more time in the house I shared with my husband. It was then that my eldest son, Tom, began to visit me frequently.
"Mom, how are you? This is your favorite snack, isn't it? I picked it up at the supermarket."
Saying this, Tom handed me a large bag of chocolates. The one who loved this chocolate was not me, but my husband. I used to offer it at his altar, so Tom must have thought it was my favorite. To tell the truth, Tom, my eldest son, was a terrible delinquent in his youth. In middle school, he met a senior delinquent and started hanging out with him night after night, finding something relatable in his words. As a result, his grades were the worst in his class. He was told that high school entrance would be difficult. But when his delinquent senior advanced to high school, Tom declared,
"I'm going to the same high school as my senior,"
and managed to study enough to get admitted, though that high school was known for having many delinquents. So it's no surprise that Tom always had a confrontational attitude towards both me and his father. One night, when Tom came home past midnight, I couldn't help but say, "Tom, what are you doing out so late as a middle schooler? We may not have set a curfew, but please, come home within a reasonable time." Tom glared at me and retorted,
"Huh? There's no curfew, so I can come home whenever I want. What's this common sense you speak of? I don't get it. Don't impose your own rules on us."
I thought it was futile to argue, but then my husband said,
"So, if we set a curfew, you'll come home by that time? We'll lock the door and set the door lock at curfew time. It doesn't matter to us if you choose to stay out. We'll set a rule, so even you can understand. Let's decide on a curfew and stick to it from now on."
He placed his hand on my shoulder, reassuring me as he spoke to Tom. My husband was always a firm person, so Tom couldn't talk back to him. Thus he clicked his tongue and went back to his room. After that, Tom, perhaps disliking the idea of a set curfew, started coming home before 10 p.m. It was a significant improvement. To tell the truth, we had not only Tom, but also his elder sister, Jenny. Since Tom became a delinquent, Jenny began to despise him, saying, "I don't want to think of him as my brother. I don't see what's so cool about acting tough." Jenny was always serious and liked studying, so she couldn't understand her brother, who found joy in senseless acts and neglected his studies. Both my husband and I share similar thoughts to Jenny, so we were at a loss about what to do with Tom. When Tom bragged in the living room,
"Today I did something bad with a senior,"
Jenny would frown and say, "That's so lame." The relationship as siblings seemed to be at its worst. And when Tom graduated from high school, he joined the company where his admired senior worked. There was a dormitory at the company, so he moved out to live there. To be honest, I felt relieved to be free from Tom. Tom, having left home and received his first paycheck, never thought of being filial. He never gave us any gifts with his first salary. Since Tom had never given us presents for our birthdays or anniversaries, it was perhaps expected. However, when Jenny graduated from university and received her first salary at her new job, she treated my husband and me to a delicious barbecue. I know it's not right to compare siblings, but sometimes I can't help wondering, why did Tom turn out like that? Even if time were to turn back, I think my husband and I still wouldn't have known how to deal with Tom. The first time Tom showed his face to us after starting work was 5 years ago. Suddenly, Tom contacted us saying,
"Let me know when Dad and Mom are home. Oh, and don't call Jenny."
Curious about his intentions, I informed him of the days and times my husband and I would be home. On the appointed day, Tom came to our house, and to our surprise, he was accompanied by a beautiful woman. The long-haired beauty, who appeared to be Tom's age or younger, greeted us politely. "My name is Catherine, and I'm in a relationship with Tom. I look forward to getting to know you. Please take care of me from now on." My husband and I were taken aback by Tom bringing such a well-mannered woman. We were quite flustered and out of character. Catherine seemed to find our bewildered state amusing, probably entertained by the sight of her flustered future in-laws.
"Catherine is the daughter of the president of the company I work for. She's also the sister of the senior I respect."
We ushered them into the living room, offering tea and snacks, and Tom began to tell us how they met. My husband and I exchanged glances. When I asked, "The senior you respect, you mean the one you've admired since middle school, right?" Tom proudly thumped his chest and said,
"Of course."
A sense of unease passed between my husband and me. The very senior Tom admired since middle school was the person who led him down the path of delinquency. To us, he was the one who corrupted our son. And now Tom was not only still admiring him, but also planning to marry his sister. If the sister of the senior he admires is the daughter of a president, that means the senior is the son of a president. He probably joined his parents' company right after school. Is this okay? Even though Catherine greeted us with proper manners, I couldn't help feeling a bit uneasy. However, they both seemed determined to marry, and our worries wouldn't change their decision now. When my husband and I congratulated them on their marriage, Tom and Catherine smiled and said, "A wedding gift of about $10,000 would be good." My husband and I were dumbfounded by this statement. Tom said it as if it were the most natural thing, and Catherine didn't seem to mind his words. My husband and I realized then, Catherine must also share a certain level of unreasonable thinking with Tom. Otherwise, she wouldn't consider marrying someone with such an irrational mindset.
"Catherine's parents are also contributing to the wedding. Even though our family isn't wealthy, you can afford $10,000, right?"
Tom said shamelessly, and my husband and I reluctantly nodded.
"Well, if that's the case."
Perhaps nodding in agreement then wasn't the best decision. It might have given Tom and Catherine the impression that if they pushed, we would acquiesce to their demands. My husband and I thought that if the bride's family was contributing to the wedding, we should too, but it seemed to us that Tom and Catherine were only thinking about getting money. Anyway, after the wedding, my husband and I decided to keep our distance from Tom as much as possible. However, 3 years ago, my husband passed away, and I met Tom and Catherine again after a long time. They were polite like the other mourners and paid their respects to my husband, but Jenny overheard them whispering, "How much inheritance is there? He was just a regular salaryman, so there probably isn't much, right?" Knowing this, they left quickly after the funeral. Tom's attitude changed when he saw the house I currently live in.
"I heard you moved, but wow, this house. It's even bigger and nicer than where Catherine and I live."
He excitedly explored the house. When I mentioned that I moved here about 3 years ago, Tom looked around and said,
"Huh, really?"
and left shortly after, but since then he's been coming to my house almost every week. Recently, not just Tom, but also Catherine started visiting and said nonchalantly in front of me, "Wow, mother-in-law living alone in this house. What a waste." Their so-called gifts were just cheap snacks from the supermarket, always less expensive than the ones I offered. Yet Catherine and Tom started saying,
"This house doesn't suit you, Mom. It should belong to Catherine's parents and Catherine, being a president's family."
"That's right. That's a great idea."
They suddenly got excited, and then Catherine said to me,
"So, mother-in-law, could you please leave?"
I was dumbfounded by the abruptness of the request. Seeing my confused state, Catherine got irritated and said,
"My parents will live here, so just go to a facility or something."
Tom, who should have stopped Catherine's outburst, just grinned at me and said,
Don't take it the wrong way.
Indeed, my close friend Emma has invited me to join her in a facility, and I have been feeling lonely, living alone in this house. So leaving this house isn't a problem, but there's just one issue. Can these kids afford a rent of $2,000? Before I could ask them any of my concerns, they said to me,
First of all, a stingy person like you shouldn't be surrounded by such luxurious appliances. It's not fitting for you. So we as a couple are thinking of living here with our in-laws. Our in-laws run in a company after all.
Exactly. It's wasteful for you to live in this house, mother-in-law. People like us should be living in this house. Noblesse oblige, right?
I think they're completely misunderstanding the meaning. It seemed foolish to even talk about rent or my income. Understood. I'll have the items I bought picked up by a contractor tomorrow. Tomorrow will be hectic, so if you're moving in, please do so the day after tomorrow. As I said this, the two of them, thinking everything was going their way, looked at each other and smiled broadly.
Great. Let's go tell father-in-law and mother-in-law right away.
They'll surely be delighted.
With that, they left the house, and I called the contractor. The next day, I had the contractor remove all the furniture and appliances from the house. I sorted things to sell and to keep, temporarily storing what I kept in rental storage. After telling my close friend Emma about wanting to enter a facility, she immediately arranged for me to meet the owner. The day after the movers came, I spoke with the owner and completed the entry procedures. When I checked my phone, there were numerous missed calls from Tom. I answered the phone as it seemed he was calling again. Hello, what's the matter?
What's the matter? What do you mean, what's the matter? Why is there nothing left in the house? We said we were going to live here, and you stole everything.
I let out a big sigh. Stealing is such a harsh term. Everything in that house was brought by your father and me. You didn't buy any of it, so I only took what belongs to me.
But, we said we were going to live there. You should have left the appliances for us.
What are you saying? You two, who told me that the house is too good for me and kicked me out, expect me to leave the appliances? Don't be ridiculous. Why should I do such a thing for you?
But I'm the eldest son.
So what? Being the eldest son doesn't mean you get pampered. It's utterly foolish. Have you ever done anything to deserve my pampering?
That's,
Of course, I love my child. However, I no longer feel any desire to give anything for free to my eldest son, Tom, who has been rebellious towards my husband and me for so long and never once thanked us for what we did. The last time we thought of giving something for free was when we were asked to give $10,000 as a wedding gift. Even after receiving the gift, Tom said,
Well, our family isn't wealthy, haha. This must be your limit.
without a word of thanks. When I told my close friend Emma about what Tom and Catherine said to me yesterday, she got angry as if it was her matter, saying,
How dare they? They never thanked Emily even once. So brazen.
There's no need to forgive such behavior, even if they are blood relatives. Besides, they're adults with their own families now. You don't have to look after them like you would for children. Hearing that, I made up my mind. I don't have to be lenient with Tom and Catherine anymore.
Well, can't help it then. Since there's no rent, we just need to buy furniture and appliances at first.
Hearing Tom muttering this on the other end of the phone, I said to him, Did you think that house was owned by us? That house is a rental, you know.
What? It's not a house that Dad and Mom bought? I thought you had saved up money over the years and bought it.
No, that's not the case. The real estate agent should be arriving there soon. They can explain everything in detail. The rent for that house is $2,000.
Huh? $2,000? Wait, does that mean Dad and Mom were paying $2,000 every month to live in this house?
That's right.
So they weren't poor after all.
I don't understand why Tom calls us poor. Maybe it's because he married Catherine, the president's daughter, and started thinking that way. Ever since his rebellious phase in middle school, Tom never really involved himself with us, his parents, so it's not surprising that he doesn't know about our jobs. Even if he asks, I don't want to say too much to avoid any negative impact on my work, but we earn a decent amount. Now I also have my husband's inheritance. By the way, the rent for the house we originally lived in was $2,000, but the rent for the luxury facility I'm moving into is $3,000 per month. If I can afford that, I'm certainly not the poor person Tom and Catherine seem to think I am.
$2,000 a month? What should we do? I can't afford that.
Then Tom called out to Catherine and her parents, who seemed to be nearby.
This house is a rental. The rent is $2,000 a month. Father-in-law, could you pay it?
I was dumbfounded by his words. He probably boasted to his in-laws, saying he'd handle everything, thinking he would get a house. But now that he knows there's rent and can't afford it, he turns to his father-in-law, a company president, for help. Catherine's father, who was called by Tom and Catherine, was furious.
You called us here to show us something, and now you're suddenly talking about living together? You expect us to pay the rent for this house? No one would be happy being surprised with such a thing. Besides, this is the place where your mother lived. What have you done to her? You unfilial wretch. Did you drive her out?
I had met Catherine's parents once, and they were both strict people, actively working in their company. However, it seems Catherine's brother had become a delinquent without their knowledge due to their busy schedules. Now he's employed in their company, being rigorously retrained. Such strict parents would never approve of Tom and Catherine's plan.
We're not going to live together. Clean up your mess. And Catherine, you're going to work in our company. I'll reform that attitude of yours, thinking you can always get your way and take advantage of others.
After this exchange between Tom, Catherine, and Catherine's angry parents, I hung up the phone. As expected, Catherine's parents rejected their plan for living together. Consequently, Tom, unable to afford the $2,000 monthly rent on his salary, couldn't move in. Later, Tom was deemed in need of education by Catherine's parents and is now being rigorously trained, just like the senior he admires. Catherine also joined her father's company to learn about the harsh realities of society. While I hope the strict upbringing by Catherine's parents will straighten them out, I've decided not to involve myself any further and will not worry about it. Now I enjoy my time with my close friend Emma, occasionally having tea parties with my elder daughter Jenny, who brings seasonal fruits as gifts.